Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael Sandler, your host on Inspire Nation. If you've ever wanted to do more, feel better, and attract the uncommon into your life, then do we have the Becoming Supernatural show for you. Today I'll be speaking with Dr. Joe Dispenza, international lecturer, researcher, and the best-selling author of numerous books, including You Are the Placebo, and his latest must-read for changing your life, Becoming Supernatural. And that's just what I want to talk with him about today, about how to change your brainwaves and tune into consciousness to change your health, your emotions, and your life. That, plus we'll talk about Sputnik antennas, the importance of whatever, the danger to a Greek philosopher, cougars and ranch hands, robots and chicks, surfing and tail fins, and what in the world electric eels and the brain have to do with anything. So, gotcha. Welcome back to the show, Dr. Joe. Are you ready to shine?
I'm so happy to be with you, Michael. I'm always ready to shine.
So great to have you here, and a mighty woohoo! So, since we've had you on the show, and people can listen to that to get a good backstory on you, let's dive right in. What does Becoming Supernatural mean?
Well, I wrote the book because in the last 5 years, we've been doing quantitative analysis on a lot of our students in our advanced workshops. And the reason we started doing those in different scans and readings was because we saw significant changes in people's health and in their lives right during the events that we were doing in our weekend workshops. So once you start seeing those type of changes, you know that something's going on in people's inner states. So when we started out on the journey in measuring brain waves and brain scans and heart coherence and heart rate monitors and measuring epigenetic changes and protein expression and neurotransmitters on students that came to our event, and then they went through 4 days of training to change, we never really anticipated at the end of 4 days that we would be seeing the type of changes that we were seeing in common people. And it is supernatural that someone is able to heal in a weekend. It is supernatural that a person is sustaining internal states, levels of order independent of the conditions in their outer world. It is really supernatural that people are signaling genes in a very short amount of time and regulating proteins as a result of it, and making their brain work in a more efficient and more profoundly healthy way. And the amount of energy that we're seeing and recording in the brain has just never really been recorded in the history of neuroscience. So we have data to prove that common people, just like you and I, once they understand what they're doing and why they're doing it, the how gets easier. And so the book is just a labor of love for me because it's something that I feel really deeply about, and I'm stepping outside of the scientific realm and bridging the spiritual realm and the mystical along with the scientific, and it's something that I've always wanted to do.
I love it. So let's actually talk a little bit about you as being a bridge and an experience you had early on. You'd finished writing an article on the pineal gland. You sat back at night to let the body go to sleep and the mind to have some fun. Put mind in quotes there. What happened?
Well, one of the fascinating things that I enjoy more than anything else is having very profound mystical experiences, the type of mystical experiences that are so real, they're more real than the world we live in. And when you have one of those inner events that are so profoundly intense, I think it changes us on an implicit level, changes us to such a degree that we can't go back to being the same person again. So my interest over the last 10 years personally has been about the mystical moment. So I know that the pineal gland is responsible for making serotonin and melatonin, but I had written this article about its derivatives and its metabolites that fit into the same receptor sites as serotonin and melatonin, but it's an upgraded version of melatonin. And when it fits right into the lock and key mechanism, the brain switches on in a very different way. So I had written this article, and I was discovering all these metabolites that were profound chemicals that are facilitators of that mystical moment. And so I just kind of leaned back on the couch. My kids had just gone to sleep. I was reviewing all the things I had to do the next day. There was a beautiful fire going. It was winter in the Northwest. and I was sitting back on this lounge, and I just kind of leaned back and closed my eyes. And I just had the thought of, where are you? Where is the pineal gland anyway? So then I moved my awareness to where the gland rests in the brain. Mm-hmm. And the next thing I know, I all of a sudden have a very strong lucid moment where I see a big timepiece, like a pocket watch, but gigantic. And I see the timepiece, all of a sudden I see the hands moving. And the moment I see the hands moving forward in time and backward in time, I realize that the pineal gland, the message I'm getting, the strong symbolism, is that it's a kind of a timepiece that allows us to tune in to different time and spaces. So in the next moment, I'm standing next to myself as a child, and I'm laying in bed as a 7-year-old child, and I know that I have a fever. And I remember when I look down at myself, I remember the moment. It comes to my awareness, and I have the covers up to my nose, and the next thing you know, I'm watching this kid do the same exact thing that I was just doing on my couch in my home, which when I got fevers as a child, I loved fevers because I would go dimensional. I would have these really wild fever dreams. So I was allowing my body to fall asleep, and I was staying awake, and I was having all these very profound mystical moments. And I was trying to figure out, as a 7-year-old kid, how time works. And I don't know how I was possessed by that, but I remember then thinking about it quite a bit, and I saw that it was kind of like a 3-dimensional checkerboard. And I just fell in love with this kid that was 7 years old and really making an effort to understand this concept called time. And the moment I fell in love with him, I realized in that exact second that the love that I was feeling for him in that moment was actually drawing him to me into the future. I don't know how else to say that in any other language. And then the scene fades, and the timepiece appears, and all of a sudden it goes forward in time. And the next thing you know, I'm outside of my home, but I'm not me, Joe Dispenza. I am me, Joe Dispenza, but not in that time. I'm kind of an upgraded version, a more enlightened sense of me. And I'm walking through the backyard, through the gardens, barefoot in the middle of winter, and everything is so profoundly powerful. I'm feeling my feet on the ground. It's cold, but I love the cold. I'm walking across these basalt, beautiful stones that are lining the fire pit, and I'm feeling this incredible amount of love for life, a joy for existence, a freedom of expression. And as I'm walking along, I see this fountain that my brother and I built, and all of a sudden, this little tiny, beautiful, beautiful woman in white, it comes out from behind the fountain, and there's another woman there that's normal size, and she's kind of her guardian. And this little woman looks at me, and all of a sudden, the love that I'm feeling in my chest is amplified by 100 times. And I remember thinking, I can't imagine there's more love to feel than the love that I was just feeling, but there is more love to feel. And I was so caught up in that feeling that I had forgotten why I was walking in the backyard in the first place. And all of a sudden, I became aware of why. And I looked over and I saw myself in the kitchen a couple hours before washing dishes. And I glanced over at my present self as my future self. And I just looked at this guy and I fell in love with him. And I realized that I understood his challenges. I understood his mind and how he loved to piece together concepts and ideas. And I started feeling this incredible love for him. And me, as the Joe Dispenza washing the dishes, I remember now washing the dishes, and I stop a couple hours before thinking that somebody is watching me in my backyard. And I remember the lights from the kitchen were creating a glare, like a reflection, so I couldn't see in the backyard. But I remember leaning forward and looking through the window to see if anybody was out there. In one instant,
it was you.
And it was me. And I realized in that moment that my future self knew things about me that no one else could know, but was me just more in love with life and more in expressing a greater degree of love. And in that instant, I realized that the future me that was in my backyard was calling me, the present me, to it with this energy of love. And that kind of started me on this whole journey of taking a closer look at the mystical and really bridging that those two worlds.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing. And that, first off, the thought that comes up, we don't need to go there, but I think of Salvador Dali and this melted timepiece, because he used to go into the hypnagogic state to draw and would pull concepts of time, which is maybe he was getting just the glimpse of what you started to get there. Maybe where we should go is your understanding of time, I think, has been radically altered. And you say that we have to master the concept of the present moment. What does that mean?
Well, there's so much talk about the present moment and being present in the power of now, but most people, they spend the majority of their life, 95% of the time, either living by some past emotion or some past habit, or anticipating the future based on the past. And so we're very rarely in the present moment. And paying attention is being present. And it's a skill, just like anything else. The more you practice it, the better you get at it. So think about it. If feelings and emotions are the end product of past experiences, and you can remember experiences better because you can remember how they feel. If you wake up in the morning and you have to search for the familiar feeling called you every morning, and that feeling is unhappiness or frustration or lack or insecurity or fear, the moment you get in touch with that emotion, you're starting your day from the past, because the emotion is a record of the past. Now, if that emotion is connected to memories that are mapped neurologically in your brain of certain people at certain places at certain times with certain things, then the moment you feel that emotion, you associate that emotion with the past memory, then you're activating circuits in your brain from the past. So if how you think and how you feel creates your state of being, and thoughts are the vocabulary of the brain, and feelings are the vocabulary of your body, then your entire state of being is in the past. And most people are living in the past. So their body is their unconscious mind, and it doesn't know the difference between an experience in their life that creates an emotion and an emotion that they're creating by thought alone. To the body, it's exactly the same. So those emotions start driving people's thoughts. And if they can't think greater than how they feel, and feelings have become the means of thinking, and they believe that their thoughts have something to do with their destiny, then they're thinking in the past. So they're creating more of the same life. And by the same means, if they wake up in the morning and they come back to their senses and they start out with the same routine that they did yesterday, and they're going through a series of routine habits of going to the toilet, making coffee, eating breakfast, taking a shower, driving to work the same way, then we could say, for the most part, a person's future is nothing more than a replication of the past, and they're not in the present moment. And if they keep doing that over and over again, that becomes a habit. And a habit is a redundant set of automatic, unconscious thoughts, behaviors, and emotions that's acquired through frequent repetition. A habit is when you've done something so many times, the body has become the mind. So for most people, their body is dragging them into a predictable future, and they're on autopilot based on what they've done in the past, and they've lost their free will to a program. So then teaching people then how to keep their attention in the present moment and take their attention off their body, take their attention off of people in their life, take their attention off of things they own or objects they possess, places they have to go, and even time itself is the act of becoming pure consciousness. And that's when we begin to disengage from the emotions of the body in the past and the habituations of the body living in the future based on the past. And so that process, then, think about it. The stronger the emotion you have, the more you pay attention to what you think is causing it. So if you feel fear, and in antiquity, if you're being chased by a predator, the moment you feel fear, you're thinking about that predator because you need to keep it on your mind. So now what if it's not a predator, but what if it's your coworker? What if it's your boss? What if it's your ex? And the stronger the emotion you feel for those people, the more you're keeping your mind and your attention on them. So then if where you place your attention is where you place your energy, then you're giving your power away to that person or that thing. And if you got a lot of those things and objects and people, and your attention is shifting from one person to another problem to another thing, we could say then that your attention and your energy is divided. And you don't really have any energy for healing, any energy to create a new life, any energy for a mystical moment. So then breaking that association and being in the present moment requires you becoming conscious of when you're feeling guilty or feeling insecure. And the moment you start noticing it, you settle your body back down into the present moment, relax, and turn back up into that unlimited field of possibilities. And the moment you start noticing, thinking about how long have I gone, how much time is this going to go, what do I have to do today, who do I have to see, what meeting do I have, that the act of putting your attention in the predictable future based on what you did in the past and returning back to the present moment is disinvesting your energy out of the known and making room for the unknown in your life. And just like training an animal, Michael, the more you do this, the more you're able to settle down the brain and the body into the present moment. And now you're building your own electromagnetic field as you break the bonds energetically with everyone and everything in your life. And you keep your attention off the person that you think is causing that emotional reaction, then you're disinvesting your energy out of your past, present reality, and now you have the available energy to begin to change. And we've measured this, and people's energy fields get more broadened, their brain becomes more coherent, their heart becomes more coherent, they have significant changes in their health, just as a result of finding the sweet spot of the generous present moment.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So many directions we can go with it. I guess the first that I want to go is you said something which sounds like wackiness. I understand it. I want some clarity, though. You said that we need to think, or they need to think greater than how they feel.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a big one. I mean, most people, they have experiences in their life that brand them emotionally, and or a series of experiences that replicate the same emotion. And they start believing that they're their emotions, and they're not. So if those emotions are driving their thoughts and they can't think greater than how they feel, then they're thinking in the past. So then the moment they turn on a set of circuits in their brain to produce a level of mind, they all of a sudden generate more emotions and chemicals equal to how they were just thinking. So if they're feeling insecure and they start thinking insecure thoughts, the moment they get enough circuits firing, they'll make more chemicals for them to feel insecure. And then when they feel more insecure, then they'll think more insecure thoughts. And the moment they turn on those insecure thoughts, they'll feel more of those emotions. And the repetition of that loop of thinking and feeling and feeling and thinking over time conditions the body to become the mind of that emotion. So now, not only they can't think greater than how they feel, but they can't think greater than their body. And so their body literally has been conditioned to become the mind of that emotion, then the body literally is in the past. So then teaching people how to get beyond their body is the act of being in the present moment as well. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't respect your body or you shouldn't honor it or acknowledge it. But when it comes time to change, you have to get beyond the very aspect of the self that keeps you connected to the past in order to create a new future.
Thank you. I want to dive into a bit of the how-to in a little bit, but before that, the other thing that you said that was interesting is you said that when we shift this, when we break free of the past, of being in that survival mode or autopilot place, we begin to create our own magnetic field. What do you mean by that?
Well, everything in this universe is emitting light and information. That everything material has a field around it. It's energy. And our bodies are made of atoms, and atoms make molecules, and molecules make chemicals, and chemicals make cells, and cells make tissues, and tissues make organs, and organs make systems, and systems make up the body. So we're emitting energy and light all the time. Now, we lose that energy or we mismanage that energy when we turn on that fight or flight nervous system or the stress response. So the moment we start becoming stressful and we react, in antiquity, we reacted to conditions in our environment we have to draw from the body's resources and turn it into chemistry. So the act of reacting with fear or aggression or sadness or pain or whatever, we're literally tapping the body's vital energy and turning it into chemistry, and the field around the body begins to shrink. When that happens, we become more matter and less energy, more particle and less wave. Now we're diminishing our light field. So then, how do we build our own light field? Well, in fact, as we begin to lower the volume to those emotions and keep our attention off the cause of it, and we begin to settle back down into the present moment, if we keep doing that, energy is liberated from the body. Now that energy that's stored in the body is being released, and now we become more energy and less matter, more wave and less particle, and the body's starting to liberate more light and information. And now that's the available energy that we begin to build to create a new life and to heal ourselves.
Woohoo! Let's go from there. Let's talk about brainwaves, and maybe go to Brainwaves 101, and then I want to talk about how we actually start to functionally change this in the moment. You've really dove deep into brainwaves. What can you briefly share about it with us?
So there's no real mystery to brainwaves. I mean, our brain's job is to create coherence and meaning between what's going on in the outer world and what's going on in our inner world. And so it makes sense then that when we're conscious and we're aware that we're a body in space and time, that we're local in space and time, that we have to use our senses to navigate in three-dimensional reality. So you need your senses, and because they plug you into this world. And if you took away your eyes and your ears and your smell and your taste and your feeling, you could not interact with the outer world. So it makes sense then that as we begin to perceive reality with our senses, there's a lot of information coming into our brain, and we have to organize that information, everything we're seeing and smelling and tasting and feeling and hearing. When that happens, the brain moves into a very kind of fast brainwave pattern called beta brainwave patterns. And it's a kind of a steady brainwave pattern. It's a low idle, and we're probably both in low-level beta right now. If I said to you, Michael, look, I'm going to give you a test, and everything I said, you got to be able to pass the test, you would pay attention a little bit more, and your light bulb in your brain would get a little brighter, and you would move into what's called mid-range beta. Now you're more vigilant, you're a little more focused. Kind of a good stress. But when you're angry and when you're frustrated and when you're intolerant and you're impatient, your brain goes into a brainwave pattern called high beta. That's very, very high because the stress hormones are causing the brain to become aroused. So some people get switched on into that high beta pattern, and they have anxiety, they have depression, they have all kinds of mood swings because the brain is now functioning at a higher level, at a faster idle. But when we close our eyes and we disconnect from the outer environment, or we start breathing and we start relaxing, when we start slowing our breath down, our brainwaves slow down. And when we close our eyes and disconnect from the outer environment, or we're driving in our car and we're in trance, our brainwaves move from beta brainwaves to alpha brainwaves. Now in alpha, you're starting to pay attention more to your inner world and not so much all of your attention on your outer world. And now you're starting to get into that realm of imagination. The voice in your head that's always talking to you kind of goes away, and you're kind of seeing in images and pictures instead of sub-vocalizations. So if your body starts to fall asleep and your mind is awake, that's that magic twilight place, that hypnagogue state where we're in theta. And that's a perfect place to really make significant changes because you're conscious in your subconscious mind. Then there's delta, which is restorative sleep. It's when the body is, the brainwaves in the thinking brain are shut way down and the autonomic nervous system is repairing the body. And then there's gamma brainwave patterns, and that's when the brain becomes highly aroused. But the arousal is not coming from a predator in your outer environment. The arousal is coming from within. And we've got so much data to show that when a person goes into gamma, and we now know how to induce that state, the energy from the body is moving into the brain, and it's activating the limbic brain, the autonomic nervous system. And the autonomic nervous system then sends a very profound signal to the thinking brain. And now the brain waves of gamma are actually faster than beta. And now we're super conscious, we're super aware. The brain is turned on, it's switched on. There's energy in the brain, and all of a sudden you feel more awake, more aware, more conscious. And that's the moment that we really embrace a greater understanding of ourselves and of life.
Beautiful, beautiful. From there, talking about, you mentioned about the hypnagogic state. So we might as well go there for a minute. Kind of your law of attraction. You talk about in this state, if we are to bring things about, if we're to have intention, we need to be perceiving with heartfelt emotion. What does that mean?
Well, look, I mean, we spend 70% of the time or more living by some really tough emotions that range from unhappiness to negativity, to fear, to anxiety, to anger, to hostility, to frustration, to envy, to jealousy, to pain, suffering, and guilt. Those are pretty much derived from those stress hormones, and most of the people spend the majority of their life caught up in those emotions, and whether they know it or not, the act of having those emotional responses to something in their outer world or even to a thought in their own mind becomes a little bit of an arousal to the brain. So people get kind of hooked into the emotion and almost addicted to it because it gives their brain and body a rush of energy. So we now know that when a person starts feeling an elevated emotion, an emotion like gratitude or appreciation, or joy or freedom or inspiration, that those emotions have a very different effect on the body, a different effect on the immune system, a different effect on the heart. When you're angry and frustrated, your heart beats very incoherently because it's ready to run from a predator or hide from a predator or fight a predator, but no one's running or fighting or hiding. And so it's like stepping on your gas pedal and your brake at the same time. It starts to create a lot of incoherence in the heart, and the heart has its own little individual brain. So then we teach students then how to regulate an elevated emotion and create more coherence in the heart, and we measure it. And when the heart starts beating more coherently, more in an organized fashion, it sends a very clear magnetic field away from the body. That field, that energy, is a frequency, and all frequency carries information. So then a person, when they feel the elevated emotion, they're creating their bigger field, they're becoming more energy and less matter. And the intent that they have, the thought that they're thinking, is being carried on that frequency. And now they're broadcasting a different field of information and light around their body. And they're tuning into a potential that already exists in the quantum field. And if they're doing it properly, they're investing their attention into the future. They're changing their energy. They're changing their brain. They're changing their neurochemistry. They're changing their circuitry. They're changing their genes. They're changing their protein expression. And their brain and body are living in a future present reality instead of the past present reality. And the repetition of that over time begins to change a person's state of being. And now they belong to their future instead of belonging to their past.
Thank you. And it's amazing. I think of this experiment that you cite of a robot and a chick, which goes to how much, if we're operating in coherence, we can literally change the world around us.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. I mean, we've done the experiments for that as well. So I'll talk to that on two levels. I mean, René Payache is a physician from France and a researcher, and he took day-old baby chicks, and day-old baby chicks like to imprint and bond on a mother hen. But instead of using a mother hen, he dressed up a robot as a baby chick, and he let them imprint on this robot. Now, the robot was a random event generator, which means a random event generator is like a coin toss. 50% of the time, the robot's going to turn to the right, and 50% of the time, the robot's going to turn to the left. So if you put it in a caged arena and you let the robot go and you were to map where it would move through the arena, it would cover pretty much the entire arena equally. It would spread out. But when he took those baby chicks and he set them on one side of the arena in a cage, and the moment those baby chicks saw the robot, thinking it was their mother, their intentions and their thoughts and the emotions drew the random event generator to that side of the cage 100% of the time. So the fundamental question is, if 1 day old or 3 day old baby chicks can influence a random event generator to move to that side of the cage with those tiny little brains and small little hearts, imagine what you and I can do when we get clear on an intention and we begin to combine it with an emotion. So we've done experiments where we've taken students and we've had them wear heart rate monitors, 50 of them in the front of the room, and 750 people in the rest of the room, and everybody else in the room would call up an elevated emotion, feel that elevated emotion, sustain it, then broadcast it beyond their body, and then lay the intent, the thought on that energy for the greatest good of everybody wearing the heart rate monitors in the front of the room, that their lives be enriched, that their bodies be healed, that the mystical find them, that their dreams be manifested and realized, and do that just for 10 minutes. Well, it's kind of interesting that so many people go into heart coherence that are wearing the heart rate monitors at the exact same time, on the exact same day, in the exact same meditation, which means then everybody's influencing those people's autonomic nervous system in a very remote way. So every person then that's receiving that energy, is their autonomic nervous system is being influenced, and that person that goes into heart coherence should influence every person in their life that they're connected to, and should create more heart coherence in every single person. And of course, then that's a great way to change the world. So we've done these peace gathering events where we've had over 40,000 people participate, and that's exactly what we do. We're doing the same thing for the planet, and it only takes a small percentage of people on this planet to sustain a certain level of coherence that should begin to, over time, affect everybody. And if there's any time in the world that we need that, I think now is the time. So it's a very ambitious ideal, but what else is there to do?
I love it. And, we had on Lynn McTaggart just last week. She's got the American Peace Intention experiment she was doing. So I love the synchronicity of this. And I asked her that question. I might as well geek out and ask you. Then I want to dive into just some brief how-tos. What do you think is up with the fabric of the universe that it's designed that the more we come together and the more we get in coherence, the more we can do?
Yeah, the quantum field is an invisible field of information that exists beyond space and time. There's no people there, there's no bodies there, there's no objects, there's no things, there's no place, and there's not even time. So if you take away all the people, all the bodies, all the things, all the objects, you take away the planets, you take away the moons, you take away the stars, the light from the stars, you take away the galaxies, you take away everything, you're left with a big black space. And that happens to be a field that's rich in frequency and information that we can't perceive with our senses. We can only perceive with our awareness. So as people have the instruction and the proper information, and they begin to strive to put their attention on it, to tune into it, to experience it, to stay present with it moment after moment after moment, every time they begin to pick up more of its subtleties, the experience literally creates the circuits in their brain, because that's what experience does, which means the next time they look for it, they have the circuits in place to perceive it. And if you keep doing this over and over again, you start wiring your brain for the divine. So as people start to connect to that unified field is the energy that governs all the laws of nature, that brings everything into order. So as you connect to it more and more, then you experience more wholeness and more oneness and less separation. So if you experience less separation, then there's less separation between you and your dreams as well. There's less separation between you and the person that's sitting next to you. You experience more oneness. And so as you unfold deeper into that field, you can produce greater effects on the nature of reality because you're moving closer to its origins. So we experience separation when we feel fear. We experience separation when we feel anger and aggression. We experience separation when we feel pain and suffering, because the very chemicals cause us to perceive reality with our senses. And then, of course, if I'm perceiving reality with my senses, there's me here and there's you there. And there's me here and there's my dreams over there. But as we connect to it more and more, as we get closer and closer to it and we experience more of it, then we should be able to produce a greater effect on the nature of reality, because we're more connected to the very field of information that really organizes matter into form. So we're climbing upstream to be able to produce an effect downstream.
Woohoo! On top of meditation, and by God, I've got to get to one of your events. We'll talk about your events coming up in a minute. What can we do on a moment-by-moment basis when we catch ourselves and realize we're riding our emotions?
Look, I mean, there's nothing wrong with an emotional reaction. I still have them. I mean, we all do. The question is, how long are you going to have it? That's the real question. And if you can't break that emotional reaction, then it means on some level you must be addicted to that emotion, because an addiction is something you think you can't stop. Mm-hmm. So imagine then, when you start reacting, most people don't think that they have the ability to stop it, so they don't. They think the person out there is doing it to me, or that situation is creating it. So once we say that, we're victims because we have no control over ourselves. So when we start reacting, the first thing to do is to stop, take a breath, center yourself, bring up an elevated emotion. And I know that a lot of times you don't want to do it because you want to feel angry and you want to feel frustrated and you want to feel fear, because that's the normal reaction. So the first step in any process of change is becoming aware. So you may just say, my gosh, now I'm aware that I'm angry. Now that I'm aware that I'm fearful, that's the first step. The second step is doing something about it. Taking a moment, excusing yourself from the conditions in your life just for a few minutes. Centering yourself. I just did it yesterday. Centering myself, taking a couple breaths, raising my energy, and working with my body so I don't do that for 4 hours, because it turns out we lose a lot of energy, and we also start downregulating genes that start creating disease. So the second step is really executing a change by creating an elevated state. And so you begin to lower the volume to those survival emotions, and of course you begin to cultivate elevated emotions. And it makes sense that our students who practice this every single day in doing the inner work, it's becoming a skill for them. And we see some students that are able to sustain those states for over an hour at a time, which means they don't have all their attention on their outer world now. They're actually paying more attention to their inner world, and they're not putting all their attention out there. And that's what allows them to catch it when they start feeling a certain way. So you got to practice, just like you just can't go out and hit a tennis ball unless you start practicing. And the more you practice and the more you do the work, the same thing happens with your ability to be able to regulate and change different states.
Beautiful. Is that something people should practice? You talked about getting up in the morning and all of a sudden you're living in the past. Is this something we should jump right into first thing in the morning, for instance?
I do. I think that most people spend the majority of their life living by the memories of the past, and instead of being defined by a vision of the future. I think most people believe in their past more than they believe in their future. I think people are more in love with their past than they are more in love with their future. And they certainly tell the story of their past more than they tell the story of their future. And it's so much easier to forget our vision than to remember it. So why not start the day with remembering who you want to be when you open your eyes? Remember that vision, and then begin to teach your body emotionally what that future feels like before it happens. Now, that kind of goes against how we've been conditioned. We need to get something in order to feel gratitude. Well, what if your whole life you're not creating and you're not, and then nothing's changing? Well, that means you're living in emptiness and lack your whole entire life. So imagine if you finish a meditation and you get up feeling grateful. Then you feel like you already have what you've created, and you have less lack or separation. You feel more whole, and so you're less likely to force outcomes and control outcomes in your life because you feel like it's already happened. So starting your day by changing your brain neurologically and neurochemically, and changing your body chemically and genetically to live in the future present instead of the past present, and be able to maintain that modified state of mind and body your entire day. Just get ready, because if you're able to do that, you'll start seeing synchronicities and opportunities and serendipities and coincidences happening in your life, because that's the side effect of a change in energy. It's a side effect of changing our state of being.
Woohoo! if I was to take off my coaching hat and put it on you, Dr. Joe, and you gave people one assignment to take action on today, what would it be?
Well, I think probably the first thing I would have people do is to really decide what they want in their life. I mean, that's the first step. Decide what your future could look like, and get clear on what that vision is, and write down the specifics of what you want in your life, whether it's with your family or your career or with a relationship or whatever it is, and get clear on what that vision is of yourself in the future. And then write down the emotions of how you'll feel when it happens. Will you be joyful? Will you be enthusiastic? Will you be filled with energy? Will you love your life and be in a constant state of gratitude? And now you have a clear intention and elevated emotion. And every morning when you start your day, before you open your eyes and reach for your cell phone and check your WhatsApp and your texts and your Facebook and your Twitter and your Instagram and your LinkedIn and your emails, before you plug yourself back into your same familiar world, sit there and get very clear on what that future will be like and begin to emotionally embrace it before it happens. And if you do that properly, you're moving into a new state of being. And then at certain points in your day, just break and ask yourself how you're doing. How am I doing? Am I doing well? Am I losing it? Am I falling from grace? And then recalibrate. And at the end of your day, ask yourself how you did. And if you keep changing your state of being over and over again, your state of being is your personality, and your personality creates your personal reality. And when you start seeing those changes in your life and those synchronicities, the energy and the excitement of the surprise of that event is going to inspire you to create again. And I think that's how we move from victims in our lives to creators of our lives.
That's what I call a woohoo! So on that note, where can people go to find out more, to find your clinics? Jessica wanted me to mention she went to a progressive workshop in Philly in December. She came back on fire. She said, mention to Dr. Joe, she had a choice, either work on a tax audit or go. And she went to the event. She set the best intentions possible with the tax audit, and the best outcome came.
Yeah, that's how it works. And the beauty behind me writing Becoming Supernatural is that exact reason. Common people like you and I are doing the uncommon. If you teach them the what and the why, the how gets easier. And so we do progressive workshops all around the world. I mean, my website is www.drjoedispenza.com, where we do progressive workshops, weekend workshops. We have a few left this year. And then we're changing the whole model next year. We're going to put our progressive workshops as an online course. And I'm not teaching 4-day advanced workshops any longer. I'm going to teach 1 week-long workshops, advanced workshops, because by Saturday, when people are breaking through after 19 advanced workshops, gosh, I'd love to have them for a few more days to really see them do some really cool things. So the new book's available, the workshops are available, and I really do think that this is a time in history where it's not enough to know. This is a time in history to know how, and I'm a pragmatist, so getting down and doing it always gives people the opportunity to impress themselves.
Awesome. And I wanted to mention you've got an event, Progressive Austin, Texas, December 8th to 10th, week-long retreat, Port Aventura Resort, and Tarragona, Spain. I'm sure I'm not getting that right. January 8th to the 14th, and a new type of event. And you'll have another new type of event, which is what you're talking about in Berlin in May.
Exactly.
So before I let you go, I've got to ask any last words of wisdom, but something I found at the end of your book, Becoming Supernatural, was very profound. The importance of asking the question, what would love do?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's so easy to surrender that idea because of some circumstance in our life. But I mean, when you start asking the question, what would love do, if you're truly in that place, the thing you would probably do is you'd probably forgive. You'd probably let go, you'd probably heal, you'd probably express, and probably be a whole lot more connected to everyone and everything in your life. And so I think it's the glue that holds it all together, and I think when you and I keep practicing doing that, it's not natural in the beginning, but the only way we become supernatural is we have to start doing what feels unnatural. And if we keep doing it over and over again, we will become supernatural.
Amen. Any last words of wisdom you want to share, Dr. Joe?
Oh, gosh darn it. I just think it's a great time to be alive right now. I think that people are waking up, and I think that everybody, no one is so special to be excluded from this phenomenon, and this is a time where we have to start living all the changes we'd like to see in the world.
Could not agree more. Well, thank you so much. This has been fantastic. A lot of fun. I'm so glad the bandwidth held in there for us. So I think this is so important for us, so for everyone. So thank you.
You're welcome, Michael, and thanks for doing the work that you do. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. So for everyone out there, this is Michael Sandler saying, be well, have fun, get becoming supernatural, and begin becoming supernatural yourself today. And shine bright. Woohoo! Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michael.
Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like below. Also, leave your comments. Have some real fun with it. Subscribe to our channel where you're going to get more great videos, more interviews coming up. And check out our website, inspirenationshow.com. That's where you'll find tips, blogs, information, videos you won't find anywhere else, and useful and helpful resources to really help you kickstart your life and to shine bright. Thanks so much again. Thank you for your support. Like, comment, subscribe. See the website. Thanks so much and have fun. Of course, shine bright. Woohoo!